Hello, and welcome to the Wild West Podcast. My name is Richie Richey of the MHRT Network. Directly over to my right or left, depending on which way you're facing your screen, is the real Alex Gibbons. You can catch him on Airhead Addict, as well as sometimes on the fantasy podcast that comes on directly after the show on the Lockdown Defense Podcast Network. And down directly below me, the smirking pirate, is Captain Jack. You can catch him on YouTube and all other forms of social media. And last but not least, we have Coach Defense of the Lockdown Defense Network. We cover all four teams here of the AFC West to go over all of the things for our teams and give you interesting perspectives as best as we can. Guys, how we all doing?
Good.
I'm doing good.
Sun's out, guns out, I see.
The Doyle rules.
Sun's out, guns out. As long as it ain't sun's out, buns out, we good.
Yeah, right. Don't get them started. Just barely into the show here.
Yeah, I mean, you know, I don't want to tune them up too early. There you go. Get your Big Papa pump on. There you go. Yeah.
Wow. If there's a dude that's ever been on roids, I mean, let's just be real.
Yeah. And the transformation of that is just too unreal.
Yeah.
Too unreal.
Yeah.
Yeah. Unbelievable.
So guys, obviously we do have a big announcement today that we're going to get into on the show. And we will get into that just a little bit later on. Want to get right into week 18. It's weird kind of saying that out loud just because it's been so long since we've kind of had full seasons like that. Yeah, you got to remember you got to round down for the bye week. And Captain, you are going to run out of hands, so I hope that's okay.
Oh my God!
Oh, there we go.
Hey, you got no shoes on neither. Lord have mercy. Help us all, Tiny Tim.
Yeah. So, Alex, I'll throw over to you. Obviously, with the Chiefs, it didn't really matter one way or another. You guys were in it one way or another, but obviously with your win, that certainly assisted things with you guys. Thoughts on your game against Coach's Chargers, who were clearly tactfully tanking.
Yeah, right.
They made a call to Coach. Coach willfully obliged, took the call, gave them his recommendations, and it was executed to perfection. But Alex, your thoughts on that game?
They got the script. Yeah, I said before the game would have been the ultimate troll to let them win just so they'd have a higher draft pick.
And I was worried. When it got down to the wire, I was like, these mofos. These mofos going to just let us win.
Now you're picking 8.
You're right.
I'm just kidding, but,
yeah, leave it to these mofos.
Yeah, right. I mean, it was pretty much had a very much a preseason game type vibe with the amount of non-starters that were playing kind of across the board. And there really wasn't too much exciting things that happened, on KC side outside of the 97-yard scoop and score on the Chargers opening drive, which I'd say very much set the tone or, kind of shifted the momentum. That was like the 18th play of the drive. They were clearly, moving on, for the most part, KC's second team defense. And then to have a Minihue, sack stick on the 5 and force a fumble that creates a turnover and a touchdown. Pretty good way to start the game. But I mean, outside of that, wasn't very exciting. But as Dom Toretto has said, it could be by an inch or a mile, but a win is a win. So good. I'd say good for team morale to not finish week 18 losing and kind of stumble into the playoffs. As we've seen some other, kind of the narrative on some other teams getting the playoffs, looking at, the Dolphins or the Eagles, just kind of how they've sort of lost their way into the playoffs. I think that as a team, that's not really where you would want to be. So I think overall good that they were able to secure the win, whether it be from Harrison Butker's foot or, the defense creating some scoring opportunities. I'd say biggest takeaways from the Chiefs' perspective, definitely got to see some good, firsthand look at the younger defensive players. Out of the 7 picks they had in this draft, I think 5 of them were defensive guys. So got to see some younger guys like B.J. Thompson, is a pretty versatile edge rusher. Corner Nick Jones, got to see all those guys, get valuable reps and, have the expected ups and downs, but did see some flashes, of some brighter things ahead with guys like that. First round pick Felix and DK Uzoma got a pretty heavy dose this game, which, I'd say he was way more up and down than some of these other ones, which is, I wouldn't say did anything to really thread the needle on him being a, full-time option next year, but you did see some promising things, out of a rookie that's been slowly developing. Overall, fairly lackluster performance from the backup offense, which I'd say is pretty on par for how the first team offense was for most of the year. But I'd say there's a very clear drop off in how this offense moves, even from the first to the one. We saw Hardman get 77 yards, but that was just mostly because there was no one else really there to be an option with, Rice and Mahomes and Kelsey and Pacheco and all these other guys sitting out. Would have liked to see a little bit more efficiency from Blaine Gabbert, strictly because I think in 2 of the last 3 divisional rounds, Mahomes has suffered an injury, and we've had to have Chad Henne come in and, go Henne mode for a drive. So,
y'all got a lot of alcoholic and drug addict backups, man. You got Henne and you got Cocaine Blaine.
Right? Cocaine Blaine, maybe Hen dog.
Hen dog and Cocaine Blaine.
But just say I would have liked to see him look a little more efficient, just because in recent past we've had to have a backup come in and keep the ball moving. Maybe it's a little different if he does have the full arsenal of Pacheco, Kelsey, and Rice, but would have liked to see him look a little more polished where he wanted to go. He ultimately is 50% completion and no touchdowns with the turnover. Is not the best of performances, against. Hey, he's just been maximizing his profit. I'd say. I don't know.
That is one way of looking at it. So I do have one question to say, Alex, just to confirm though. You played the Raiders the week 17, right?
Week 17? No. Played the Bengals.
Okay, week 16.
Yeah, one of those.
Okay.
15, 14.
So it was right within that last few games of the season there.
16. Mm-hmm.
Can we confirm when the last drug test was?
What?
You all just came from Vegas with like at least 3 drug addicts.
Now I see the correlation. I was like, Raiders drug test? What? Oh, now I get it.
No. It has nothing to do with the Raiders. Don't go sullying the Raiders name when that's not what my intention was.
Well,
I was solely looking at the drug addicts that exist as the backups for the Chiefs and wondering if they were drug tested prior to the game.
You thought they were They on that Wolfpack hangover stuff,
it's that stuff lingers in your system. Man. That stuff lingers in your system.
Yeah.
To my knowledge, there's been no testing, but I can neither confirm nor deny.
All right.
But overall, I think that's kind of the positive. You got to see some decent production from the young defensive players. Other than that, able to squeak out a win and keep Harrison Butker fresh for the playoffs.
Yeah.
And, I know Coach was happy with the successful completion of the tactful tanking.
That's it, baby.
To be picking in a single-digit draft order for the first time in a minute. So
since we drafted Herbert. So, yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Tactful tanking is complete.
I do have one question for you, Alex. Super interesting stats on resting your starters.
Mm-hmm.
Genuinely, it's not even just at this point here, you have enough data to actually start doing something with. Like before, it was unheard of, right? Where you'd rest your starters and then go into the playoffs. Now there's enough teams that have tried it, and let's just say that there is mixed reviews, and that's being kind and generous as it pertains to resting your guys. We're now getting into really interesting stats in the fact that do you rest for 2 weeks or just the 1 week and so on and so forth. But you guys are just resting for the 1 week there. Generally speaking, the stats do not look good. It's normally better for you to play your starters for like a series or two and then play your backups. You didn't do that as a team. Does that concern you?
I mean, for the most part, they did do that. I think the only people that were officially not play from the jump were Mahomes and Kelsey. But like Joe Toney, Chris Jones was out there mainly to get his incentive. I guess as another bonus, he did get his 10 sacks, so he got a cool 1.25. But they did kind of do that for the most part with it, like across the board with some key components not dressing out at all. I guess, I was a little hesitant about them resting just because of the stigma, like you said, with that and the stats. I will say I think that this team's at least, one benefit of years past, that they at least were able to have first-round buys for the most part. So they kind of, I'd say, are a little experienced, or at least Mahomes is, in how to handle somewhat of an off week heading into, a win it or go home type setting. You would think that, just doing it from week 18 to go into the bye wouldn't have too much of an impact. But I mean, like I said, I was hesitant about it just because of the kind of the more, immature, younger guys that they got to rely on just to get this offense to move. I didn't know if it was the best of approaches to, let guys sit and, kind of take a week off and then, see if they can bring that back to the table once it really matters. But, it is what it is. So we'll just have to see if the off week or time off and kind of let people reset, gives them a fresh outlook going into, like I said, a win or go home type setting. And maybe we see a little bit different production or just game flow from the offense. But, I would at least say the glass half full is, for the most part, most of the people on that offensive side, or just the team as a whole, are fairly experienced in the past 3-4 years of, having a bye and having to kind of have a week off or a stagnant period of not really like doing anything at game speed or full go, and have able to turn that into success. So we'll see. Anything can happen in the playoffs. So
yeah. Yeah, I mean, the other thing is you're in a really interesting position where some of the other teams were perhaps playing to win to stay in.
Yeah.
And exactly. You were not necessarily in that same position as they were because you had further to fall, if you will, as a team. One way or another, you were in it. It was a matter of where were you in it, right? And so I just think that certainly, for what it's worth, you can take it for whatever you want. But I think that plays a different role in things, whether you like to admit it or not, which is, these teams that are, if I don't win, I don't make the playoffs. And they play you coming in. They came in like riled up, ready to go, saying like, I'm gonna do the thing. And you're like, well, one way or another, we were playing in the playoffs. Who cares? And
I think that's ultimately why I'm sure Reed let some of these guys decide, hey, like Kelsey snapped his streak of,
playing
7 straight seasons with 1,000 yards by not playing. He finished with under 1,000 for the first time. Rice had, I think, 40 yards left to break the rookie franchise record for most, in a season. Like Chris Jones had the sack incentive where he just needed one to get that. And I think it was pretty obvious that he kind of let those guys, make the choice if they wanted to play or not. Meanwhile, let the other guys, come out, get their registered start, and then get off the field. Like Joe Toney, for example, the left guard, we saw him. I think he played the first drive or maybe even the first couple plays and got out, but then Wanye Morris, the left tackle, got a concussion, and Toney had to go in and play left tackle and actually, displayed some pretty good versatility with that. But I mean, I think, that was kind of the plan was, hey, the more seasoned, established guys, I'm going to let you decide, one way or another, if you want to dress out and go out there to start, or go get your incentives or go get your record, or just sit back and let's see how this playoff tree shakes out and who we got to go with.
Yeah. So Coach, we kind of covered the Chiefs side of things, and I don't know how much you want to say in terms of your game.
Where are they picking, baby?
But number 5, baby, number 5.
You are picking where the Broncos were supposed to have been picking when we traded for the former Bronco Russell Wilson. And
I see what you did there. I see what you did there. Okay, all
right. Coach, look, as much as you'd like to poke fun and say the things, I have stayed remarkably consistent.
That you have.
Look, like.
Listen, you have now 3 things I know about you about this podcast. You love Eric Saubert, you hate Justin Simmons, and you were vehemently against trade for Russell Wilson. And you stand on those 10 toes down. I give you credit for that. Stand on business. That's right. You stand on business.
And you know what? I will own all 3 of those takes.
And
Captain, you watched that Raiders game, and Coach, you said that teams are going to do this. We saw Simmons do the exact same crap that you and I were talking about last podcast. I'm diving to try to tackle the guy. I missed. And you and I were talking about that last podcast about the veteran players. Like, they make it look like they're doing the thing, but they're not really doing the thing to kind of,
Didn't we just have the Golden Globes? They should have been over some categories.
Dude, Simmons was putting on a master class that only the soccer players could really learn from. Like, it was absolutely awful. Like, it was pretty sad. I'm not going to lie. And look, we need, as Broncos fans and as football fans and as fanalists, we need to separate the player, as in off the field, from the play on the field. These are 2 completely different things. Simmons can be an absolute standout off the field in terms of a citizen off the field, father, husband, community work, all that kind of stuff. That is not what I'm referring to. That stuff stands by itself, and he deserves, all of the absolute credit, and he has my absolute, keep doing what you're doing. That is absolutely should be recommended and commended. The problem I have here is his play on the field. We're seeing missed tackles, bad angles. We're seeing misplays. And we're also seeing younger guys that are coming up that have been drafted lower, outplaying him in the key types of defensive plays, which, Coach, as much as I know you like Justin Simmons, generally speaking, if you're going to put on your DC coordinator hat and truly analyze the tape and actually look at the coach's film, which I know you know how to analyze and cut up, you're likely going to come away agreeing with me more often than not in terms of my general consensus surrounding some of the stuff I see. He can make some great plays, and he can intercept the ball and do some key things. That's fine and good, but those aren't the defining moments that matter when you're the second or third highest player on the team. You need the guy to show out for all of the plays, all of the time, especially in key moments. And when you see those key moments play out, like, Captain, we saw some goal line moments there in the run game when Josh Jacobs ran in for the touchdown. Coach, I encourage you to watch that on replay. Number 31 did his best soccer player flop tackle impression.
He made a business decision.
He made a business decision that was not spelt correctly.
Josh Jacobs running in for a touchdown last game? He didn't play.
Well, sorry, I meant.
It must have been Zamir White.
Sorry, I meant White. Sorry, I meant White. I meant White.
Just
No. I meant White. Sorry, you're right. I meant White. Sorry, he ran in for a touchdown like I've seen Josh Jacobs do. So I had a little PTSD kind of going on there as a Broncos fan. But the result was the same. We'll just put it that way. The point being is that we saw the flub tackles that we've seen with Justin Simmons from, say, the 2022 Bills game and others, where we saw the poor angle tackle flop attempts and just like kind of the open arm kind of belly flop on the ground to make it look like I'm trying to do the thing. But in reality, Coach, the whole point from what you and I both agreed on last podcast, which is that is the legitimate business decision of a veteran. Do I put myself in harm's way, or do I make it look really convincing on film that I tried?
Yeah, well, there you go. I'll make it look good. Listen, you can't put it on film and say I didn't try. I'll stand on the fact that I tried. I just missed the tackle.
I tried, man. It was I can't believe I did the thing.
And you can't judge effort on tape. So that's the thing.
No,
you can't judge effort on tape, so they'll let that slide. You'll be like, that was there, Coach. I was there.
Yeah. I was
right there.
I just missed the angle. Right, my bad. I will do better. I promise. But Coach, up to you on your team's general performance against the Chiefs. Thoughts? I mean, obviously, to your point, it was in your interest as a team, as a collective, to basically make it look competitive, but ultimately not win.
Yeah, they look confused out here. They was like, what type of team are we going to get from the Chiefs? Like, are they mailing it in, or are they trying to let us win? It was a very weird game. It was a very weird game because
preseason, man.
Yeah, it seemed a little bit like that. Like, and a lot of the people that played preseason were playing in this game for the Chargers for sure. You had the third and fourth string guys playing. The O-line was a hodgepodge of people. Then we had an injury or two. So that was one thing. Poor old Austin Eckler, he was out there trying to give it an old college try. He couldn't get anything moving.
He's done.
But I give Josh Palmer and a few other guys a lot of credit. They were out there, trying to give it a good old college try. But I think they all had under the auspices that we weren't trying to win hard to win this game. So I think that was the biggest and most glaring thing, especially at the end when they let the Chiefs squeak that last score out. So I was like, okay, like they do listen. They listen to the pod. They listen to me. I scream on my own network. I scream here. Say, look here. At this point, let's just tactfully, gracefully going out on our on our laurels, and we'll just be picking high, and we'll get a good hopefully a generational talent that's coming in the next cycle. But and looking at it from a top 100 perspective, you're picking 5 in the first 3 rounds. That's a beautiful thing. One thing that the previous regime didn't do was sell away our draft capital. So we do have that going for us. Now we just got to figure out this cap situation. But I think all in all, they were just trying to get out of there without any long-term injuries, like I alluded to last week. Trying to be a professional and play the game that you're paid for, but just trying to get out there without any long-term injuries and getting to the offseason and being healthy and whole, and not have to worry about any lingering things and something you have to work on, to get back from injury perspective in the offseason.
I haven't heard anything. Is that correct? Like you guys are like you didn't come out with anything that was
nothing major. No, nothing major. No.
Okay. I mean, look, we're division rivals, but at the end of the day,
I mean, we're not heartless.
Yeah. Like there's some, let's have some degree of camaraderie and heart here. Like these are real people that don't deserve to not walk for 6 months. You know what I mean? So,
exactly.
Yeah. So I'm glad that took place, and obviously I'm not happy about your 5th overall pick. I would like that to be maybe somewhere around like the 15 to 25 mark.
Of course. You can't have it all here, Hasselhoff.
Yeah, exactly. So
but it does allude to the idea how much of a travesty the season was. That definitely tells you you're picking high. You didn't have a good season, but hopefully you can use that capital to turn things around. I'm curious to see what they do. I mean, I think Arizona's the only glaring team ahead of us that's going to pick a position of a need for us. They're probably, unless they trade out, they're probably going to take the number 1 receiver, Myra Harrison. That's my thought, because I'm assuming they're going to invest in Kyler and not pick up another quarterback. But strange things happen. We'll see how the offseason shakes out.
They have done it before.
They have
done it before. Like, this is not an unprecedented
they've gone
thing.
back to back QB.
I know they went from Josh Rosen to Kyler Murray. So, but again, it was one of those things. They're both rookies, so there wasn't a big how do you do when it comes to cap casualty. Mm-hmm. So, and I think that the sentiment in the organization, from what I've read, is that they do believe in Kyler. So I do believe that they're going to build around him. So your idea would be to do one or two things: get him a weapon or get him a tackle. So, and both are very deep. In high in talent in the first round when it comes to receivers and tackles. So they had their choice.
Coach.
Huh?
That's unfortunate.
What you mean?
Well, they need to get them high heels.
You know what? That's what make it worse. You imagine him running around with high heels on?
Well, hey, wait a second. If he plays his cards right, he can ask the Kiss, the group Kiss, because their heels were about like a foot high.
No, wow. That's exactly it.
Gene Simmons boots.
Yeah.
We know what he's talking about.
It needs lift.
Yeah.
These need moon boots.
Are you aware of any rules in the NFL that prevents people from wearing the stilts that drywallers wear?
Yeah, it could be like the Savannah Bananas out there.
Well, I'm not sure it's a rule, but I do know that you can't wear cleats over a certain length. I'm assuming that platform shoes are out of the question.
No, I'm talking about leg extension.
They're not cleats.
They're flat, though. They're flat, coach, so they're not going to hurt anybody.
That comes down to what the definition of a cleat is.
Right.
Yeah.
Yes, exactly.
True.
And if it's on the bottom,
y'all open up a can of worms though, because then that Tua's going to want some, Russell's going to want some. Anybody that's below 6 foot is going to want a pair.
Well, coach, you just found Russ's fix right there. Good for you.
Hey, I helped you out. Hey, listen, man. Hey, I'm here to help. I'm just saying.
And now he's all of a sudden worth $37 million. That's fantastic.
Hey, because he can see over the line. He can make throws in the middle of the field. Yeah. There you go.
Yeah.
There you go. That'll work.
Yeah. Apparently, are allowed on the field, so get him some stilts.
He needs to get like a knee transplant to just add a few inches. Get him to 6'1".
Yeah,
well,
that's it. That is the demarcation line that you need to be at. Got to be 6'1".
I can't remember which Star Trek series they had where the guy was. They inserted like about a couple. Well, for that it was like a couple inches. He was a Klingon on the inside, or on the inside he was a Klingon. On the outside he was a human. But they inserted like something in his, suppose like 3 inches in his spine. So it's been. I can't remember which one it was. It's there. All you do, you basically do like a jack up, like a.
The blueprint's out there.
Yeah,
hey,
the truck.
You just gotta execute.
But like I said, you open up a can of worms, because all the people, all the short kings is what they call them. All the short kings are going to want in on the front. They're going to want in on the fun. So yes, I definitely agree.
I've just never had that problem. I've always been able to reach the top shelf.
Hey man,
discovery.
That's it.
And that's all I got to say. But it's like, honestly, it's really funny because like Kyler he's legit short.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. He's the shortest. He might be the shortest quarterback in the league. I think I have it accurately. Yeah. He's a wee man.
Yeah.
Yes, he's a wee man.
Anyway. Is there anything that you took away from your game that you were surprised by in a good way?
I'm going to go with a resounding no.
Okay. I tried, coach. I was really reaching. I can reach the top shelf, so I tried.
Right. It's not much. I mean, again, it's the same.
Got out of there with your pick.
That's it. That's the most positive thing that we can ask for.
You got
out of there with the top 5 picks. So yeah,
all right.
There you go. There it is.
So that is going to cover off the one AFC West matchup, and Captain, you and our teams faced off in a matchup that I'd like to forget. But
I ain't gonna forget that, because it was the way to go. No. It was the way to end the year that has had so much promise. And again, it showed at the very end. I'm sorry to cut you off, Rich, but like I said, first off, I would like to say that I enjoyed the predominance of Bronco fans that were out there. I had a really good time, and taking pictures with them, and took them all in. And it was great to see Bronco fans that are actually good sportsmen, and I'm sure that is the predominance of fans around the NFL, that it is like that. It's just unfortunate. It's the a-holes that you see that are sometimes here in the chat or in other places that you get a chance to see them, like in Mile High Stadium, that that make the experience totally unfortunately negative for everybody else. But had a lot of good fun with the Bronco fans, and it was great to have them out there.
No, I look, for generally speaking, I will say that I've been to Mile High twice. I will say that I actually spent a good portion of my time telling my fellow Broncos fans to leave the opponent's fans that were around me alone. And that was kind of sad, actually, when I was there. I mean, the good news is that I'm built like a linebacker, so most people don't argue with me. That's a good thing. But you're right, Captain, is that there's a select few people that kind of ruin the experience for a lot of others. And actually, Alex, it's funny that one of my first Broncos games was against KC in Mile High, a little while back now. And beside me were two KC fans that were praising the Broncos, and we got along really well. But there was like two Broncos fans behind me that I had to turn around and put in their place because they just couldn't shut up and stop heckling the fans that were actually complimenting the Broncos for how well they were playing. I mean, we beat KC. This was before Mahomes was there. Because, that was one of the last times we actually beat KC. But at the same time, it ruins the experience when you can't just enjoy the game and you make it a personal mission of yours to belittle people that are there trying to enjoy the game too. Even if the opposing fans are losing, there's no reason to berate them and speak ill of them or their team. They're there trying to enjoy the game the same as you. And I have no time for that nonsense. It just makes no sense to me whatsoever. But perhaps I'm in a minority. I don't know. But anytime I do go to a game, regardless of where it is, that's going to be my MO. If I see someone getting mistreated, you better believe I'm going to be the person in between. And
that's why I stay out the streets. I ain't gonna lie to you. I want to go to way more games than I do. But if I do, I take an entourage with me because I know that I don't have the patience for foolishness. So I definitely share that sentiment with you, Richie. And I don't get it because what bothers me about it the most is that had you turned the tide on them and done that to them, they'd be crying wolf. They'd be crying wolf. Yeah. Oh my God, you're such an a-hole. Why are you doing that? Do all the waterworks and tears and all that good stuff. You can dish it out, but you can't take it. So why bother?
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. And it is such an awesome experience at an NFL game. For anyone who hasn't gone, it is worth a modest splurge to try to go and get the best seats you can. I really, really hope that everyone is able to enjoy that type of experience. Coach, one of my deals, I actually have relatives that are out in the California, LA, Huntington Beach, kind of through that general region. I have relatives in that area. I am going to end up going to a Chargers Broncos game in full Broncos gear out in LA. And I'm looking forward to it. And it's one of those things where I've only ever been to Mile High. So I've only ever been kind of in friendly territory. And it's going to be rather interesting to see how I'm treated going into an opposing stadium.
You know what? You don't have any problem in LA as long as you don't have any metal around your neck. And that's one of the reasons why I'm not going back to LA anytime soon. I probably won't be going back to Denver because of the unfortunate, the a-holes, the few a-holes that were there that really made the experience miserable each time. And same thing goes for Kansas City. It was the security that made me feel miserable each time. And I've already got my ticket punch for all three of the stadiums, so I'm not missing anything at all. And it's unfortunate because I really wanted to go out for the Christmas game. I felt it in my bones that we were going to beat Kansas City on Christmas, and it would have been nice to have been there. But I also don't really relish going to Kansas City in December or January. You know, it's not worth the trip in that respect either. But as far as like, you won't have any problems because again, you don't have any get-ups, or as I call it, my uniform that will be having a accoutrement that you would have to worry about. Whereas, unfortunately, I do.
No, I just look like a Broncos Viking. I'm literally just built like a Broncos Viking. That's it. I'm from the north. I have a big beard, like a thick big beard. I'm literally I just walk in and the security guy goes, "I hope you're not going to cause trouble."
Yeah,
because it's like
yeah. Supposed to be the coldest game.
That's a lose for both of us. I'm going to hurt him and he's going to hurt me, and it's just not a good thing, right? And of course, that's just not who I am. That's not the way I'm built. But at the end of the day, I just think that we should all be enjoying the games when we're there because it is such a unique experience when you're able to attend a sporting event like that for your team, whether you win or lose. That you want to enjoy it when you're there. And by the way, Alex, I did see that KC game is supposed to be 0 degrees. That is
that's the high. That's the high.
Yeah,
I know. Hold on.
Right.
That is my kind of weather.
Winds too.
Yeah.
No, that is my kind of weather.
It's supposed to be the coldest playoff game in NFL history.
That does not bode well.
That is
for
why
Candy.
I am not going.
It's
Cane score.
supposed to be even colder than the Blizzard Bowl between Dallas and Green Bay.
Yes.
That's what they were saying.
And Alex,
That's why I decided, nah, I'm not going to be there.
Alex,
Yeah.
Alex, just to be clear, that is a standard temperature for where I live in the winter.
It's pretty standard for here too. I mean, this time of year, unfortunately. Yeah. I just think it's funny though how all season, I mean, not to get too far ahead, but like all season they've, I've seen plenty of stuff on Twitter, or like ESPN talks about the Dolphins Stadium and how it's built so that the opposing sideline gets more sun.
Yeah.
But and then it's like all of that, and then it comes down to them having to go into literally a tundra. It's like the polar opposite, and be as efficient as they would be in the Florida sun.
Yeah, and I said exactly the Dolphins are going to lose considerably horribly. It'll be the one Kansas City win this postseason that I'm pretty much banking on. But hey, that's next week. I still want to go back and talk about the fact that the Broncos and Raiders had a entertaining game. That they did. The Raiders fans with AP there, they brought Oakland. They brought Oakland back into that black hole because when the Bronco entourage went into the area around the black hole and started taunting the black hole, and people unloaded on them with some beers and waters. No. And I'm like, that's Oakland, man. That is Oakland, and that is probably, honestly, the very first time I've seen it get Oakland up in there. And it was Oakland up in there this past Sunday.
You said we're back.
So, Coach, here's my response to
that. I'm thinking I'm back.
Here's my response to that. I would have heard from more than, 50 Raiders fans, because due to our relationship, Captain, I actually have a really good contingent of Raiders fans that do follow me, because I'm actually quite fair in my coverage of the Raiders and what I think of them. I really am. I hope that the Raiders fans don't condone that type of behavior. And now, I understand.
For the most part, we don't. And for those that, first off, if you're stupid enough to do it and you're a season ticket holder, you're gone. Your
Right.
tickets are. You'll never
As you
see
should,
me do
as you
something
should,
like that.
as you
Yeah.
should be, as you
Yeah.
should be. And this kind of ties back in. And Coach Alex, Captain, I don't care who you are. We kind of all have to generally agree on these things. I think, which is, I don't care who you are. I don't care how, into the game you are. I understand that beers are served, and I understand that alcohol is flowing. At the same time, throwing things at players on the field can lead to injury, whether or not you would like to admit it or not. And it is literally as simple as that. There is nothing more that needs to be said. I would condemn a Broncos fan for doing that to Raiders players, and I equally condemn the Raiders fans for doing that to my Broncos players as well. Especially,
and you know what? And I got you, man. But one thing you have to at least put into the equation here, it ain't beer bottles. Yeah, it's bottles of beer, but they're plastic. I will at least say that. Granted, when you have if it's full, then it packs a little bit more of a punch than if it is a bottle. But most of the fans probably drained that before they threw the damn thing in the first place.
Yeah,
Again,
I don't care.
I'm not condoning it, Rich. What I'm saying is that it's at least gone down levels that they figured that stuff. Oh, they figured that stuff out years ago, which is why they started going to plastic bottles in the first place.
Right. My comments remain the same, regardless of whether or not it's paper, plastic, or glass. It is irrelevant in my mind. Don't throw crap on the field, and don't throw crap at players, regardless of opponent or your own.
And these Zed, man, like I said, this is Vegas. This ain't Oakland. This is Vegas.
It's Vegas now.
I'm telling people, it's Vegas. It's not Oakland. And that is the big difference.
Right. And I appreciate the fact that this is the Raiders coming back into their own, reestablishing additional fans within the city of Las Vegas. Totally get that. Totally understand that a lot of fans are going to be really emotional about certain things. Totally understand that too. But guess what? I've been 12 beers deep into a Broncos game and never felt the need to go out and throw a bottle at the KC player when they scored a touchdown when I was there. Doesn't matter. You just don't do it. So, I mean, that's just like, there is nothing else that needs to be said. And that's literally it. Right. But I do want to give a huge shout out on the show to Alex Singleton. As much as I think that he's had some miscues this season, his record-setting total tackle numbers this season for the Broncos is both frightening and impressive all at the same time. The fact that he's had to have that many tackles is an issue. The fact that he's made that many tackles.
We have 177. Dang.
Yeah, that was ridiculous.
That's a lot.
So, I mean,
hey, at least it wasn't your safety. That's when it's really a problem.
Well, I mean,
that is correct. When your safety's a leading tackler, that's never a good thing.
No,
never a good thing. Not unless he's an exclusive box safety. He never leaves the box. That's never a good thing.
I agree. But I mean, I've said it on the show before. Alex Singleton, while he is a somewhat limited inside linebacker, he's got the playing style and the heart of that old school inside linebacker that you just want on your team. Like he is that dude. He's that guy that, if you cut his hair a little shorter and maybe trimmed his beard back or off completely, he's a dude that you could throw back to the 60s who plays that style of football. Right?
I'm in the comments.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
he's a good player though.
No, I honestly, I truly believe that he was one of the better free agent pickups that the Broncos have had in years. I mean, look, you can claim he's limited and claim he can't do all the things, and you're not wrong. He's got limitations as a player, But I mean, 177 tackles.
Yeah, I don't. How you call
Where'd
that?
he come from? Pittsburgh?
177 tackles.
Philly.
He's a Montana State guy. Even Montana State.
No, I meant what team was he on before the Broncos?
He was with the Stampeders.
Yeah.
He was a CFL.
Oh, okay.
Because I remember following him at the CFL level, saying this dude's NFL ready.
He was with Philly.
Yeah. Well, no, he was with Philly, but he played in the CFL. Like, he actually played as a linebacker in the CFL. Like, and he was pretty darn good. Like, he was good, and he had that grit even up here. See, in the Canadian Football League, like, the linebackers that play up this way, they have to be a different breed, because it is like, we have Winnipeg as a team, and for those Americans that don't know Winnipeg, the game that's coming up in Kansas City, that's t-shirt and short weather for Winnipeg people.
Yeah,
but like in Winnipeg,
different.
Yeah, in Winnipeg, they're just built different there. Like, that is a different breed of Canadian. Good for them. High five. Like, that's t-shirt short. That's shorts weather. That's balmy in Winnipeg. Like, their winters will go down to it's going to 0 where you are, right?
Below.
So
I think 0 is the high.
The average temperature in Winnipeg or thereabouts is basically your temperature going on right now in the winter. Like, that's the average.
That's pretty sick. That seems pretty sweet.
And like, there's days there where it goes down to like -40 Celsius.
You're right, DZ. The field is wider, and they can run behind the ball like Arena. And the damn field goal post is in the front of the end zone.
Yes.
Wow. Singleton was 3rd in the league in tackles behind Zaire Franklin and Bobby Wagner. That's crazy.
He balled.
That's crazy.
Oh, yeah.
He had a 16 tackle game against Minnesota. That's wild.
Yes.
That's ridiculous.
Yeah, man.
Yeah, I'm looking at the high. Yeah, it's supposed to be -1, dude. F that.
Get your weighted blanket and some cocoa and sit on your couch and watch the game, bud.
Yeah,
yes. Not for the faint of heart.
And half the country ain't going to see it. Yeah, half the country ain't going to see it anyway because it's on Peacock.
Yeah.
That's the game on Peacock
because they're not showing.
Oh,
so Alex, like I said, the weather that's happening in KC is my kind of weather. That's what I live for.
I will give you that title.
Yeah,
you can have that.
So I mean, there's a reason I look the way I do. Is that's literally my weather. I love that kind of cold. It's a different climate. You have to be adjusted for it, and it is clear that 99% of this chat as well as this panel is not equipped. So that's fine.
I have an admission from Ed, so
yeah.
Yeah, I would not go outside.
Yeah. So anyways, guys, that covers kind of the week 17 or 18 rather wrap up. It kind of showed us quite a bit, but really,
I'm gonna say one thing, Richie. I'm gonna say one thing. I didn't address it earlier, but you know what? For the people that are a-holes that are in the chat that I don't really like to address, you're just showing exactly what I was talking about. Thank you. You know, there are fans that are true, and I have no problem because I've met Richie, I've met Alex, and I definitely would love to meet coaches one of these days. I'm a true fan. I'm a stalwart fan, but I'm not a flaming rectal arsehole like y'all say we all are. Okay? So again, pack it, up it, sideways, and shove it. That's all I'm going to say.
So as we look ahead to the playoffs and for 75% of the division, as we look ahead to next season and what we would like to look like as a team and as a vision and all of those things, we're gonna kind of move on to those types of discussions to kind of finish off the show and kind of go on to that. Alex, we'll talk about your playoff game first, and then I think it's apt and appropriate for the rest of us to maybe talk about, an initial look ahead as we finish off the season and kind of see what we were, what we weren't, etc. So, Alex, I'll throw over to you and talk about your first playoff game, potentially your last, but your first playoff game for this season.
Wow, not potentially last though.
Had to get that little prison yard shiv in there, right?
Little bit.
Off the baton, just
a little bit.
Here you go. He'll pass it to you. Thanks for that intro there, Richie. I appreciate that. But I would agree with you, and I know I've said on this show before with this Chiefs team and just how the season went. I do think that they are highly susceptible to a first round entry. On top of, this is, I think, the first time in the Mahomes era that they have had to play in the super wild card round. So certainly a little bit of new territory. I'd say the one benefit is, we do get an explosive Dolphins team, but we get them at home at Arrowhead. We've already kind of prefaced the weather conditions of that, and I guess to some degree the home field advantage. But we also kind of get the true reunion of Tyreek Hill coming back to Arrowhead that we didn't get in Week 9 when the NFL decided to put that game in Germany. But at the same time, Miami gets a second shot at beating KC, and honestly, the first go around it was 21-14. I thought the Chiefs won it pretty handily. But just with how explosive Miami is, it was still, they were still right there in it. And, it's one turnover away from being, their kind of game. So, essentially, you're marking up I think top number 1 rated offense against, the number 1 or 2 rated defense with KC in most metrics. So, pretty much a peripheral wild card playoff matchup that you want. The Miami's going to be without a good chunk of players. It looks like already lost both their edge rushers. I think they're without Van Ginkel, who's another situational successful pass rusher for them. A lot of Xavier Howard's not expected to play, but their linebacker Jerome Baker. So. It's certainly a little bit different Miami team than what they faced in Week 9, and one that's, a little more banged up and, like I kind of prefaced, stumbled a little bit into the playoffs, and that they were sitting right there in complete control of being the 2 seed, and all they had to do was, beat Buffalo, and they couldn't get that done. And I think Buffalo kind of provided a little bit of a blueprint, although, they played them very similar to how KC did. Defensively, to kind of force Tua to do things he's uncomfortable with. And, I think we all kind of saw what happened there, given that it was a Sunday night game and it's kind of the only one on. I'd say that, the biggest questions heading into this is comparing kind of how the team matched up in Week 9, just kind of how their offense stacks up with how the Chiefs defense has been playing. On top of looking at Miami defensively, because for a good stretch there, they were playing at a pretty elite level. As listeners of our Lightning Fantasy Football podcast would know, it's because they had a very cake schedule. But they, regardless, were putting up some pretty elite numbers as a defensive unit for a 3-4 week stretch here pretty recently. It's Kelsey. It says Swift on the back. I'm kidding, but biggest question for Miami defensively, I'd say, is what can they do without their edge rushers? That's kind of been the way to make Mahomes, make mistakes, is when teams are constantly getting pressure on him. They were, for the most part, I think, right up there in terms of sacks. I think they were 3rd or 4th in the league in sacks, and were overall a pretty good pressured unit. But as I said, that was with Chubb and Jalen Phillips and Van Ginkel, and these guys are no longer part of that rotation. They're actually, ironically, heading into this game with three guys in Emmanuel Ogbah, Justin Houston, and Melvin Ingram, who all at one point or another were on the Kansas City Chiefs and Chargers.
Chargers and the Chiefs. Yeah, I agree. So you got a full circle moment with Justin Houston coming back home.
Yeah, right. And they're all 32 plus. So they got the Lifetime Fitness old man squad to come out of retirement for this one, just to give them a presence. But I think that's the biggest question mark with them defensively is what did they do and what does Fangio do to counteract that and not let Mahomes have all the time to manipulate the pocket or move things around and get guys open and uses Mahomes' magic to move the ball, because it's going to be to some degree what they're going to need to do, to get points on the board and not have these outlooks like we've had in the past couple of weeks where they got to move the ball and rely on Butker to make field goals, which at least he has. But yeah, we'll see how Miami adjusts with that, because at the same time they're going up against KC O-line that's given up the second fewest sacks in the league, and for the most part has been pretty reliable and not giving up pressure. But where that pressure does come from is the edge and the tackles, and so I think that's why this is kind of the important matchup with the banged upness of Miami on top of the inability to not get a penalty or not block someone or not even get off of the damn ball when it's snapped and give up instant pressure off the edge. Is a big question heading into this game. Second one I'd say is how much of a difference will Devon Achane make for Miami? Biggest weakness with KC's defense is obviously the run game. Week 9, Mostert, I think, had 100-something yards on him. They gave up like 7.1 per carry to him. It's not the numbers you want to see, but, all year round they've been susceptible to the run game, but ultimately been able to kind of close the gap and not give up points, once they get into the red zone. But with all that being said, Achane is the one player that did not play in week 9, and both before and after that game kind of took the lead by storm with his explosiveness. Everyone knows about his speed. He ran 22 miles an hour, and with the weather conditions, I think Miami's I think it's pretty obvious that their game plan is going to be more run centric, and maybe even a committee approach with him and Mostert and getting those guys going, just to keep their misdirection and explosive overall plan of attack moving. That's going to be kind of the other big question is will the Chiefs be able to match the speed or contain the speed and not give up the same type of yards per carry that they did to Mostert, or just in general be able to contain the run enough to force Tua to have to do stuff he's uncomfortable with, and hopefully force him from turnovers. And that kind of leads to the second or last biggest question here is can KC, like I said, do enough defensively to force Tua to do what he's uncomfortable with? He's obviously very efficient at quick reads and anticipating throws over the middle, and just accuracy. But then, that when you force him and you take that away and force him to have to use his arm strength or go more outside the numbers, the numbers are there that, it's a drastic change in how efficient and just overall successful he is. Now, obviously, they've been able to patch that. He led the league in passing yards, so they've been able to find success. But, against the Chiefs in week 9, they were able to take away the middle pretty well, and he had a pretty bad game. Watching Buffalo as well, it came down to Tua having to win more without the anticipated throws over the middle. And he wasn't successful. So, with the weather conditions and the injuries and everything else, if the KC defense can contain the run at least enough to force Miami to have to do stuff like that and make plays like that, I could see this. They'll have much better chance of winning. We'll put it that way. Offensive side of the ball, Miami's, like I said, they're pretty good up there in every metric in terms of defense, but they aren't the best against the pass. So, you got to, which is the scary thing. They're very good against the run, but pretty susceptible to the pass. I think 20th or below in pretty much any stat with that. But at the same time, Chiefs passing offense has not been the best. And, wide receivers lead the league in drop passes and everything in between. So, going to need a lot out of Rashee Rice, which, is unfortunate because he is a rookie and it's, the quote unquote big stage. So you just don't know how he can respond to that. Although he's, put up solid production, in his rookie year for a second round pick. Also going to need a lot out of Kelsey. And I think that I like to maybe fool myself into telling myself this, but I like to think that the lack of usage of him the past 3 to 4 weeks was with the mindset of let's rest him, for the playoffs. Because I think the last 3-4 games, you've seen Kelsey get 3 to 4 targets, which is absolutely crazy considering the targets he used to get on a game-to-game basis, as early as last year or, the start of this year. So, I like to think that some of that was with the hope that he's, comes into the playoffs more fresh, just how his season started. But at the same time, it's a win or go home situation. So you're going to need to rely on Kelsey. And I think with the injuries, not only with Baker, but Van Ginkel, I think that Miami can be pretty susceptible to the tight end position. So, those two biggest things there. I mentioned offensive line is going to have to do a good job of protecting Mahomes. And then finally, they're going to need to continue what they were doing, against the Bengals. Basically what they did against the Bengals and the Chargers to some degree, although Pacheco didn't play, but they're going to need to, run the damn ball, commit to it and not go away from that or not try to get cute and do screen plays or, stuff behind the line of scrimmage to move the ball. Just, commit to the run, get Miami to play, a base defense or stack the box. And then hopefully, that opens things more up in the passing game. But I think, with the weather conditions as well, if you can stick to the run and move the ball and force Miami to have to be explosive, to win or move and get in situations, I think that the Chiefs can find a lot of success with that. But ultimately, it's the best offense against the best or second best defense in the NFL. Playoff game. I think both teams are going to show up. But I do predict the Chiefs win. I think it's going to be 24-21 and come down to final possession and a Bucker field goal. Cause it just kind of seems like, that's what has happened, most of the games this year for, the Chiefs to win. So
I have a few things that I think that the Chiefs are susceptible to, particularly after watching you guys when the Broncos won, which was you struggled, and I mean legitimately struggled, with delayed linebacker blitzes and delayed safety blitzes. And cornerback blitzes. Like basically any delayed blitzes that came from the linebacker, safety, or cornerback position. Now, Miami might not have the personnel to allow all of those to take place, but I do think that they have the personnel to allow a couple of them to take place, particularly with Fangio as their defensive coordinator. I think he just look. You can say whatever you want about Fangio's time with the Denver Broncos.
Dude knows defense.
He fielded a top 5 defense every time.
Oh, yeah.
Because he is that good. Okay, like it is just like it
well,
is just
it's not like he was without a job once he got fired.
Yeah, exactly.
It's usually a pretty telltale sign they know what the hell they're talking about.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So
Well, that's why I brought up the edge rusher situation, because obviously, I think with that, it's pretty reasonable to expect that Fangio is going to have some pretty unique blitz packages and different looks set up to create pressure and not rely on the 4-man front. I mean, that's how Miami's defense is built, but unfortunately with the injuries, they just can't play that way anymore. It built letting just the 4 guys get pressure and play zone, but they can't really do that. So, I mean, I that's where I, kind of preface O-line is going to need to play better because, not picking that stuff up is a communication thing with the offensive line. That's just guys. And I would mark that up with probably just the inexperience of, the core 3 and the 2 guards and center have been together for 2-3 years now, but the tackles are new guys. Left tackle has been somewhat of a revolving door all year. And honestly, in the NFL, your edge protection is the most important one because, you can hold up guys in the middle for at least a second, but if you can't really contain the edge, you're closing the pocket down instantly. You can't really do anything. So, I mean, that's, but that all comes again to just knowing, who's you're responsible for, if you have help with the running back or not, who's the hot guy, and just communicating those things. And I think, where we've seen them have issues with that is, one with having, rookie left tackle out there who even at times is not even getting off the snap because he doesn't seem to know that it's like a no count or something. But yeah, that's the biggest. This is going to be a huge trench game, one way or the other, because just one with the weather and how both teams are going to need to play. But when you get in the playoffs, that's what you need to show up the most.
Yeah. And then I also think that the one thing that Miami can do to beat the Chiefs here as well is run the ball up the middle. I also think that's a similar game plan to what the Chiefs need to do as well, is to run the ball up the middle to condense. So what you guys need to do is you need to kind of control the game by not conforming to runs up the middle. So if they have the running backs run up the middle and then you guys start cheating guys up in the box to free up the edges and not spread out your back end defensive coverage, Tua, I think, will then in fact have a bit of a game because he's sharp that way. And I think you got to be very, very careful with that kind of stuff. And I also think McDaniels, their coach, he is not a dummy. He is a very, very smart, he's a sharp offensive dude. He's at like kind of the Bill Belichick style of the offensive side of the ball. He really is a very, very intelligent guy. And I think you need to be very, very careful with your defensive coverage because he's a type of guy that can really make you pay. And I do think that they're going to try to bring in your defense to expose some of the edges because that's like a weak spot, and then they can really start to cause some damage.
And the hit rate on the Shanahan coaching tree is ridiculous.
Oh, it's crazy, isn't it?
Oh yeah,
it's ridiculous. Offense and defense side of the ball, the hit rate is ridiculous. D'Amico Ryan, McDaniel, Slowick. just to name a few. The hit rate on that coaching tree. And you imagine that LaFleur, McDaniel, McVay, and Kyle Shanahan were all on the same staff in Washington, early 2010s, 2013
wow.
frame. Crazy, right?
Yeah.
They can win a damn game, but they all branch off and go other places and win. That's funny.
Win Super Bowl. Yeah.
Right,
yeah.
exactly.
Super Bowls, playoffs,
all that
everything
stuff.
else.
All that stuff.
And Alex, just lastly on the Kelsey piece, as long as Taylor lays off Kelsey, I think he'll be fresh enough for the game.
Fair enough. I suppose that comment is warranted. We'll see, because even against them in Week 9, he had 3 receptions for 14 yards on 4 targets. So, it's not like this year we've seen big Travis Kelce games like we've used to. I say that as it's something that I think needs to be done to see a different type of offense that we haven't seen with the Chiefs, and to be more efficient in putting points on the board. But I feel like I've said that for 8+ weeks now, and we haven't really seen it. So, that's just me continually to play the sad fiddle in the hopes that it comes out. But yeah, there's, like I said, it's the proverbial playoff matchup, the number one offense against a top tier defense. And, KC's offense has been good enough at times to not get in the way of the defense, and at other times has gotten in the way. So, ultimately, if they can protect the football and get after Tua, I think they win. And that's mainly because Miami is 1-5 against teams that are 500 or better. So, they have shown that this year themselves, they're not overly successful against other successful teams. So, we'll see how this round one of the playoffs goes.
I agree. I mean, and to speak to Sharif there, I mean, they did say it's going to be a very hard game. And, not to put too fine.
He'll be in a box, dude. Those are enclosed in glass. You don't even know it's cold.
Right. Okay. So you're saying it's a bit of a Madonna effect with the little pointy things that she wears underneath it. I get it. Okay.
Yeah.
But,
they'll have little Kelsey faces on them.
Anna's got it right. There ain't no nipples on that chick. She's as flat as a board.
We took a turn here.
And here we are.
Right.
And we're back. Okay. Now
to the non-playoff teams,
in the comments. It was in the comments. It was in the comments. So screw all y'all.
I'm not doubting that it was in the comments. I'm still saying, and we're back.
You gotta reiterate it.
Yeah. Well, I'm not saying it wasn't in the comments. I'm saying it absolutely was in the comments, but we're still back. So that's kind of where you're at with the game. I think it'll be a really interesting one. I do think it'll be. This is very much a offensive-minded head coach versus an offensive-minded head coach. But what really I believe sets this game apart are going to be your defensive coordinators, because you have two heavyweights, if you will, in the defensive coordinator space between the performance of the Chiefs and, I mean, just Fangio with his track record in the NFL, which is pretty remarkable given the tenure he's been in the league. It's pretty impressive. So I'd like to kind of see where this plays out. I think this would be a way closer game than people think it's going to be. I think it's going to be.
I mean, that's a 3-point game.
No, but I meant even lower scoring. Like I think it'll be. Like I think it could be much lower scoring than you think it'll be, because I think both teams will struggle. I think your DC is going to kind of do what he needs to do. I think Fangio will do what he needs to do. And then I think it'll be an offensive struggle to overcome the cold and other things.
That sounds good.
On one.
Yeah, tacos sound good right now, to be honest.
Taco Tuesday.
Might have to get some tacos tomorrow.
Yeah, I just say that if the wind doesn't affect the passing game as badly as it's predicted, if Miami can throw, they're going to win. Okay.
I don't know, man. They shut down their passing game in week 9.
In a dome.
What I'm saying is, if Miami can throw, they're going to win, and especially if Miami can run. Otherwise, I'm thinking Kansas City wins, because it's just a matter of Miami can run with a better complement of backs, and if they can throw to complement that, Miami will win. Otherwise, I think Kansas City will win. And I'm sorry, that's a prediction of, obvious things, but that's the way I see it.
Yeah, but to kind of put a finer point on that, Captain, the real challenge is going to be which defense can overcome and or scheme against the offensive game plan. And the reason why that's important is that the Chiefs really only have one running back that you're really concerned with, and he happens to just run really angry, which actually suits very well for cold weather games. Like that actually fits very well.
You're not going to want to tackle him. You're not going to tackle him.
You're not going to want to have that hurt, right? You're not going to want that. But at the same time, though, Miami's offensive line has generally been quite good this season, and the Chiefs have one, maybe two guys that you're really concerned with, and then another guy that you're somewhat concerned with. But depending on how you scheme and where your movement and how you shift and all those sorts of things, they have an equally dangerous running attack. And it really, in my opinion, I think it really comes down to this: who sets the tone, what offense can overcome the defensive scheme. And because of the cold weather, I do think catching the ball is going to be quite difficult because the ball is going to be so rock hard in the weather that you're not going to have any forgiveness in terms of catching the ball. So what you would typically have in an NFL game and an NFL, just generally speaking, is those one-handed style catches. They're not going to be something that you're going to be able to do particularly well in a game like this. Those stretch out catches are going to be very difficult to make because your hands are cold and the ball is cold. It's just, there's certain things that are just way more difficult when it gets that cold outside. And that's why I kind of look at the Vikings, the Steelers, the Ravens, the Bengals, the Lions even. Look at how those teams are built. They're built for weather like this because they know come hell or high water, one thing is guaranteed. They're going to have between 3 to 5 cold weather games every season, and they need to be prepared for it. And this is exactly why. So the question is, which lines, both offensive and defensive, Alex, that goes for your team as well as the Dolphins? I think it'll come down to what lines are better prepared. So offensive line for protection perspective, defensive line from a pressure perspective, and that will set the point from a can you run the ball, yes or no, and then more importantly, are you capable of catching the ball in short space, because you're not going to be able to have those bombs that you're going to normally be used to on both sides.
Yeah, I think really it's going to come down to the defensive side of the ball. I think you got to look at it from KC's perspective that they're pretty much healthy on the defensive side of the ball. And they have been pretty much all year, which has been holding them down all season. Ironically, though, the Dolphins aren't. Xavier Howard is a questionable whether or not he's going to play. They lost both edge rushers, and they, like you said, they brought in the AARP squad to kind of fill in for them. So whether they will be effective or not is a question. I think all of that plays into it, and I think the cold weather is a real thing. As a player, as a former player, Alex, just like I know, playing the cold weather games, extremely cold weather games, is a whole different animal than it is, even at a professional level, than it is playing a normal, regular standard game. And you add in the wind factor into it because let's be honest, I have my criticism of Tua, but I really believe this is warranted. His arm strength is going to come into play here. The fact that if the wind is cutting really deep in a cold weather environment, it's already going to be tailored down because it's cold, and then you're going to tailor down even further because of the wind, and you don't have the arm strength to power through that. But Patrick Mahomes does. I think that could be the difference maker as well too, to be able to make the throws that you need to make in key spots where the ball doesn't tail on you, going accurately. You could see some picks in this game because of that. The wind taking the ball, sailing the ball away from the receiver and the Dolphins' place. I know, right? So I think all that plays into it. I think that plays right into KC's hands. If they can keep the run down game down for the Dolphins and keep them out of good, solid play action, timely plays, then it plays right into KC's hands, in my opinion.
Yeah, the two. Yeah. I mean, that's why I said it comes down to. I really think it comes down to one, KC protecting the football, and two, putting pressure on Tua. I know Coach and I talked about it. During the Week 9 game, you could tell that the whole offense was out of sync because they were getting pressure to him, and he couldn't do his anticipated throws like he did.
And they didn't back off the receivers either. That was another thing. They didn't back off the receivers and let them catch the ball in front of them like a lot of people do because they don't want them to run past. So we're going to pressure him. We're going to get in the receiver's face so you can't throw the ball quick, and that's going to be the blueprint.
But and then in that game, they sacked Tua 3 times, and 5 of the 6 losses for Miami have come where Tua has been sacked 3 or more times. So I mean, that's obviously a big component to disrupting their offensive success and winning the game. And then on top of that, the Chiefs protecting the football. 4 of their 6 losses, those included multiple turnovers. So in years past, they've been able to overcome things like that, but they can't now, and they can't keep putting the defense, giving the opposing offense the short side of the field and putting the defense, with 30 yards to give up, that's a recipe for disaster. So, I think if those two things, come into play, regardless of if Miami's successful at running the ball or not, I think we ultimately see KC close it out and, find a way to win the final minutes.
Yep.
So with that in mind, that kind of covers off the Chiefs stuff, and I want to kind of go into the other teams and more look into a very brief look ahead, because we have plenty of time to start talking about our respective teams and looking into the offseason. Captain, I'll start with you. What do you think about your Raiders, and say 3 quick things just off the top of your head that you would like to see, given what you know now about your team, looking ahead?
Well, unfortunately, the Raiders situation is such in flux that this is actually a Raiders/Chargers compendium right here, because it's all about the Jim Harbaugh sweepstakes as to which team is going to give him the control he wants. And if the Chargers relinquish that first, he'll go to Los Angeles and be the coach of the Chargers. And then I think that it'll be face saving for Mark Davis, because Antonio Pierce has that team playing up to, the playing as a Raiders team of old. All he does not have an offensive coordinator or an offense to go beyond that. So if Harbaugh goes to the Chargers, or if he stays in Michigan, or if he goes somewhere else, then it'll be, from what I'm thinking, it'll be AP's team. The problem as well is, and this is point 2, is that the Raiders right now are looking for GMs before they find a coach, which I think is the best thing to do, the right way to do it. And you might get an inkling as to how that's going. But if they say that Kelly is named the new GM, where they take the interim tag off of Kelly, then that probably bodes well for Antonio Pierce. If Ed Dodds is named the GM, because his name has been bantied about, then you can actually look for Harbaugh coming there. I mean, it's almost a done deal with those names. You don't know what's going to happen until the GM is named. But either way, the Raiders will definitely improve their offense one way or another if Pierce stays or if Harbaugh comes in, and that they will actually have a team that can, put some points on the board with and here's point 3, with a revamped offensive line, and 4, some pressure in the middle from the defensive tackle, things that we've been screaming as Raider fans for years and years. We're getting better on the linebacker situation because, again, Travis Kelce, Antonio Gates, Gonzalez, pick a tight end for the last 20, 25 years that's ruled in the AFC West. It's because nobody's been able to cover them, because nobody has the linebackers to do that. So once that gets fixed, and they've done that this year, with a obviously when the head coach is made true as to what's going on, when the GM is figured out as well, you have an offense that comes in there. The Raiders can be a dynamic team in the AFC West like we thought they could be. And it only took the firing of some really just incompetent twit to make it happen. So when those things get fixed, maybe the AFC West will again be the best division in football like it was years and years and years ago, with the Raiders, with the Broncos, with the Chiefs, even with the Chargers at their dynamic tops. And people were saying that the AFC West was the best division in football. They might say it again sometime soon.
No, I agree. And I think that the Raiders have a very interesting situation compared to some of the other teams in the AFC West. You don't have a tremendous number of extraordinarily high contract players. So you're not overpaying a boatload of people. And at the same time, though, you finish with the same record as the Broncos, who have a bunch of guys that are paid within the top tier in their respective positions. So I think that says a lot. Now, I'm going to pull up Ed's comment here, which I'm going to modify slightly, but agree with it generally. I think that you're going to need first off, to start things off, the Raiders are going to need an offensive vision because they've been lacking that. McDaniels either couldn't implement the vision that he wanted, or his vision was just not good enough. I'm not willing to say one or the other, but I am going to say that when he was given total control when he was with the Broncos, there certainly did seem to be a more cohesive offensive vision. So I'm a bit concerned that he was perhaps kind of curtailed a little bit in what he was able to do because the GM may have not have done all the things that he wanted. And so we'll wait and see kind of what happens there. And by the way, the Raiders clearly agree because they fired both. So it is what it is. So I think once you figure out what your offensive vision is, I think then you can kind of build your offensive line around the scheme and everything that you want to do. And I think that may well take 2 years for you. And I'm willing to go on record saying that. I think 2 seasons is what you're going to need to rebuild and revamp your offensive line to fit a new vision for your offense. I do not think you need to focus on your secondary right now. And I also don't think you need an edge player on D either, Ed. My general concept and thing for you is you need a complement to Max Crosby. That has been your issue all along. You need either a D tackle or another D end, not necessarily an edge player to complement Crosby. And the reason why I say this is you want a Batman and a Robin or 2 Batmans on that D line, and it really goes a long way. And that's my honest to goodness opinion.
Actually, I'm going to say this, Richie. I think you're wrong, and I don't think a lot of people tell you that very often. But I'm going to say it. I think you're wrong in that respect. The thing is that at the end of the season, Kuntz was coming on as that other guy at the other end, as well as Wilson, the guy that was drafted there that actually got put in to the middle that came along. Jenkins and a couple of the other kids were playing that well. So even without getting any additions in the draft, I think that's been addressed. It will only get better, okay? The secondary is decent right now because Jones has been a find, but Amik Robertson is probably not going to be there, so you actually do need another corner because I think Amik's going to be gone, and that's unfortunate because he was that best nickel without being the nickel. And, of course, the best nickel out there is Hobbs, and he's going to stay. So in that respect, I think you haven't been paying attention as much because, again, you were focused in on your Broncos, whereas I actually pay attention, and I'm not as focused on your Broncos because I actually pay attention to my own team. Just saying.
I'm looking at how – see, I don't look at the Broncos and the Raiders' performance versus the Broncos as an accurate –
No, I'm saying that it has nothing to do with the Broncos playing the Raiders. I'm talking about throughout the whole year. Okay?
Sure.
Kuntz has come on. Wilson has come on. Even the kid that came out of Florida State that came up through the practice squad, I'm sorry, I can't remember his name, who's playing in. He had good games. And the kids in the middle, like the big horse that got that fumble 6 against the Chargers, the guy that he can run the 4.3 or run the 40 in 4.3, like 4 weeks, 3 days. Okay, he got a touchdown. So it's just a matter of people contributing. Okay, that's what I'm saying. So there has been some. The people have been playing better since they fired McDaniels, and that goes throughout the team because even the defensive coordinator, Patrick Graham, was allowed to freelance and do things the way he wanted, and that's why the defense is actually a top 10 defense. And I can't even remember the last time I've been able to say that the Raiders had a top 10 defense.
Yeah, I mean, perhaps an edge guy would help, and I'm not saying an edge rusher wouldn't help, But in today's NFL, with the quarterback rules, etc., you are better off, and this is just proven. Look at the teams that have won the Super Bowls in multiple years in a row. You are better off with someone like a Chris Jones, generally speaking, with the new quarterback rules, than you are with an elite edge rusher, because the shortest distance to get to the quarterback is up the middle. Now, the Raiders are fortunate enough where they already have a guy named Max Crosby who's great in middle pressure, and he's within the top 2 to 3 in the league. So, that's a nice problem to have solved. But it still doesn't change the fact that having a guy that's better than what you have now as a secondary person in that center portion of the defensive line, it's still the fastest route to the quarterback. And when you have a guy that can break past and break through the offensive line of your opposing team, you can also stop for tackles for loss in the run game as well, simply because you're through the offensive lineman. And so, and more importantly, when you force offensive line of your opponent to narrow in and dare I say, ignore the edges, your edge rushers will have more free rushes, even if they're not good, and look better than they actually are. So I still maintain that you're going to end up I'm not. Good for you. You're wrong. I'll take Chris Jones from the Chiefs 99.9% of the time.
You do realize that TJ Watt's likely going to win his second defensive MVP award, and he's younger right now. Like, you do realize that, right?
I'm looking at position.
Okay. All right then. Have at it.
I'm just saying.
I want TJ Watt for my money. I
think that with. I think that that you're saying that the Raiders need. Yeah, everybody needs. And if you can improve, yes, I agree with you. You improve, but if you keep the baseline of what we have right now, let's say you don't get anybody else, okay, and actually build that offensive line for a quarterback to be determined. Okay, with a real offense, it's not some damn rubber band offense that you got out of a Cracker Jack box, because that's about what it is right now. And you have a real offensive coordinator, then that will improve therein lies the score. Okay, the kid's going to get better if he's going to be the quarterback, although he's going to be in a room with a vested vet to be determined and a draft pick and AOC 4. That's what's going to be the quarterback room next year. The problem is we don't know who the vested vet quarterback is going to be and who the draft pick is going to be. That needs to be determined. But again, if you trot those guys out, you better have somebody to friggin' protect them. And they're going to do that, because I tell you, the inside of the Raiders offensive line was abysmal at best. Okay. And yeah, Fast Eddie, there you go. Fast Eddie actually has one thought that I agree with. Amazing, because we've been friends for 20-something years or so. Is that, Josh Jacobs is going to be coming playing for that guy's team next year, because he's going to be let go. So there you go. But you need those people in front of them to protect the quarterback and make the running lanes go. So that's what I'm saying.
And I actually agree with that you guys could sustain losing Jacobs if you were to build a more formidable offensive line. Because if you can run block well, you can open up better run lanes, even for a young rookie that you might bring in the running back position, who would then be able to produce, maybe not identical to Josh Jacobs, but certainly where you're not going to notice a huge decline when you let Jacobs go.
Josh Jacobs is going to be the next iteration of Marcus Allen. He's going to go to Kansas City and have fantastic games against the Raiders because they let him go. I'm serious. Book it. Yeah. Book it. It's going to happen.
I agree. So I'm going to quickly move on to my Denver Broncos, because we seem to love controversy in Denver, because, why not? It at least gets us in the news cycle, because we're certainly not winning as many games as we should. But I have a very similar approach to my Denver Broncos, Captain, as I did my comments to your Raiders in terms of what I think we need. I have not made it I made it very clear this season that the interior of the Broncos defensive line is not good. So I'm going to call out a few players and a few positions that we need to move on from in order to do the right thing. For starters, Mike Purcell, as much as I love the guy, he's a rotational interior defensive lineman at this point in his career at best. He should not be a starter because our interior and our run game was very poor. I do think that the Denver Broncos are going to move on from DJ Jones. I think that is a mistake, but also needed given the fact that our run stop percentage and everything else was not good. I also think that the Broncos used DJ Jones incorrectly, and I will cover that off in another episode. And Coach, I know that you're a huge defensive line guy, and I also know you love DJ Jones. Trust me when I say I am right there with you. However, I believe he was used in the wrong way and in the wrong spot on the D line for the most part for the Broncos season. And I think it showed in how well or how poorly, whichever way you want to look at it, either opponents were able to run on us or how poorly we were able to stop the run as a result. I also think that our safety position needs to be tweaked. We have a lot of money tied up in that safety group that has not produced particularly well. And those safeties that have produced have typically been those that are not paid top tier within their position. And I think there's a lot of evidence to support that, including missed tackles, et cetera, et cetera. Covered that a little bit early on in the show in terms of the flop tackle that we saw from Justin Simmons against the Raiders run, amongst other things. And our free agent pickups in the offensive line have just not been good enough. Like, it's just, there is no way of sugarcoating it. Mike McGlinchey has looked like crap. He's not been good. There's no way of going around this. We also did not see Plazowski come in and play as much or at all in this last game. I think we should have, although he is coming off an injury, so we don't want to re-injure a guy. I think we kind of covered that earlier in the pod as well, which is, there's a fine line between wanting to see a guy and playing a guy who might be injured. I think you're better off letting a guy get healthy so you can get a better look at him properly. And I'm hoping the Broncos feel confident in Plazowski because I think that we desperately need that other bookend tackle. Now, it's a risk because tackles are better picked in the top end of the draft. That's right tackle and left tackle. There's statistics, as we talked about, Alex, in terms of resting your quarterback. There's other statistics like drafting your tackles. Anything within the top 20 as a tackle, particularly top 10 tackles, are typically the ones that work out best for any team. And there's a precipitous drop-off as soon as you pick them outside of the top 20. And the further you get away from the first round, kind of like quarterbacks, the odds of you getting your guy are virtually nil. It's a stat. Like, it exists. There's very, very few offensive tackles that have worked out outside of that upper echelon of the draft. We really, really need that other bookend tackle. And then the other guy that really hasn't looked all that great is Powers, who is the guard, who I truly thought would be a pretty good guard for us because I thought he would fit okay transitioning into a Sean Payton system. He's been beat pretty harshly over the course of this season. And I think the Broncos are better off moving him to a backup position, while a very expensive backup, and starting to look for a rookie to replace him to start moving off of these overpriced contracts that we reached for this offseason, which I have not been very fond of. And last but not least, Coach, this one's just for you, is Russell Wilson and the quarterback situation. I think the Broncos should play hardball with Russell Wilson, in my opinion. And I think Russell Wilson cares about optics. I think that the Broncos should have a very serious conversation with Wilson about what it's going to look like. And I think they can go about it one of two ways. They can absorb his contract and put him as a number 2 on a permanent basis, which will not look good for him in terms of optics. Or they can ask Russell Wilson to be reasonable in what he's doing based on his performance on the field, which his stats as they exist this season are incredibly skewed based on the type of play and the type of film that he's put on field. Two things can be true. He can be a great dude, great guy off the field, great family man, and extremely professional. All four things are true. However, he can also be incredibly limited in terms of the offensive style and production that he puts on the field for you. And I believe that's the conundrum ultimately with Russell Wilson, is he's too limiting in order to run a dynamic offense. And if you're looking for a game that really highlighted that, I encourage you to go back and rewatch the New England game. The Broncos had no business losing that game. But do you know who understands offenses and chess better than almost any NFL coach? That is Bill Belichick. The dude, you could say whatever you want about him, he is brilliant on the defensive side of the ball. And he did exactly what needed to be done, looking at the offensive limitations of the Denver Broncos, recognizing that even though there was a bunch of different looks, there was ultimately only 5 plays. And he knew what to do in all 5 plays. And that's why the Broncos lost. So,
well, you can say that for pretty much everybody that he faces, especially, younger quarterbacks, because he frustrates and takes away your best options and what you like to do on every facet. It's not exclusive to the Broncos or Russell Wilson for that matter. He does that to a lot of people.
Are those rookie quarterbacks making $37 million a year? No. So that's my point. So you with a rookie quarterback, you can put a better offensive line that would potentially allow you to counteract some of Bill Belichick's, kung fu by perhaps running the ball better because you have a better run blocking offensive line. Or maybe you can go out and get a Devontae Adams or someone like that at the skill position that is simply just a better wide receiver than the cornerbacks than Bill Belichick can put on the field from a skill perspective, right? But the problem is that when you're paying a quarterback into the upper tier of salary, I'm not saying the upper tier, I'm saying into the upper tier of salary in terms of a quarterback, you're then limiting your ability to then put other skill positions out on the field and complement him. We've said the same thing about the Kansas City Chiefs in terms of Mahomes' contract and what it looks like. We said the same thing about other teams across the NFL in terms of when they have paid quarterbacks and they're not playing up to par. If you can't play at the level of your contract when you're making that much money and absorbing that much of your team's salary cap, you're going to hinder and limit your team accordingly. And it is pretty clear from my vantage point, and I've said this all along, actually, to be fair, that Russ is a limited quarterback, and that's why I didn't want him in Denver in the first place.
All right.
Yeah.
It'll be very interesting because I did read we covered this off on the show last night with me and Kurt that the players weren't happy that Peyton benched him, and there's growing sentiment in the locker room that they're more pro Russ than they're pro Peyton at this point. So it's going to be very interesting to see what dynamics shake out in regards to how they deal with Russell's contract and Peyton's tenure going forward, because if the locker room gets lost, that's the quickest way to get fired. I think we all can agree to that.
Yeah. I mean, look at Staley.
Right. So
I
don't know, man. It's going to be a unique situation.
Yeah, I want to reach that mutiny level.
Have 3 players that I believe likely echoed those sentiment, and I have a couple players that I believe are former regime players, which, while are great people off the field character-wise, can't knock them, I believe are not fits for the current look that the Denver Broncos need. And I'll name them because I will own what I believe and I will stick with it. One of them is Garrett Bowles. The other one is Justin Simmons. And then the other one, aside from that, would be someone like a Josie Jewell as well, who are all John Elway picks. They're John Elway players. They got contracts and or extensions or whatever the case may be under the John Elway regime. And as a result of that, I believe that they are loyal to that mentality and line of thinking. That's cool. I have no problem with that because I think that they have some loyalties, and I think that shows that they have some degree of character to them. However, I would simply point to the fact that the Broncos record speaks for what it was. We were a losing franchise. We basically never creeped above the 6 to 7 wins for the most part during that entire block. And for the most part, we leveled out around 5 to 6. All right. That is not good enough to win in the NFL. We were not good enough to compete within the division, and we did not look great. And we also didn't capitalize on the high draft picks that we had because we threw them away and didn't make anything of them.
Well, I mean, you finished second in the division.
Tied.
Oh, tied. Excuse me. Tied 8-9.
Or actually, I think Raiders finished second.
We were third.
Tiebreaker. Yeah, gotcha.
Yeah, we were third. And so we finished third in the division this year.
Oh,
I'm sorry, Coach. You're wrong.
That game came down to the silver.
You're wrong.
That game y'all just played made that happen. Oh, I'll accept it. I own it. I own it. I'm wrong. You're right. I'm wrong.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
No, what's that?
And I stayed muted for all that time. They had the same record as far as what the Raiders were. They were third in the division.
Okay.
Thank you.
Fair
and I can't remember who was fourth in the. Oh, that's right. The people that tactfully tanked. Okay.
Exactly.
Yeah.
we were on a mission and we stuck to it.
Fast Eddie.
The Chargers will charge and screw it up just like they always do.
I'm not convinced of that because I do think that there's a bit of a tide changing there, in my opinion, but that's for another day. But with regards to Fast Eddie, no, I don't know who or what that is. Feel free to go ahead and leave that in the comments down below to enlighten me. But no, I don't know who that is. Never heard of it.
That's Malcolm Kuntz. That's the gentleman I said
that
you were wrong
linebacker.
about. But no, the
Edge
Raiders
rusher.
defensive end on the other side of Crosby, the guy that was playing up and had a fantastic year. That's why I said you were wrong, that they already got somebody that was filling that spot because Wilson was going to be doing that eventually, but he actually is sliding in towards the DT like Howie Long used to do, and Kuntz played a hell of a year this year, and he was owned up to that. That's why I said you haven't been paying attention.
So tell you what, I will go back and rewatch several of the games that were not against the Broncos because I don't believe those count because I don't like the Broncos offensive line. I will go back and rewatch some of those games, and I will have some information for you when I rewatch how Kuntz did. How's that?
That was a long time ago, DZ. So I'm okay with our track record here lately.
Yeah. So anyway, my general sentiment of the Broncos, and I said this last show, and the postseason pressers didn't do anything to deter me from my comments last show, is I think this is going to be a year where the Broncos are going to just blow it up. And I think you're going to see I think Broncos fans are going to see it as blowing up the roster, but the way I see it as a changeover from former regime to new regime. I think you're going to want to see players that have not been the solution, perhaps not even the problem, but just not the solution. I think you're going to see those players traded for draft capital, and I think you're going to see the Broncos look to move on, get rid of some of the more expensive contracts. Probably key players that a lot of the Broncos fans, perhaps not named me, are going to be very sad to see go. But I think you're going to start seeing that churn occur on the Broncos roster because you're going to start to see a bit of a revamped look to cross with a coach that values building a roster from the inside out. And I think that you're going to see a GM in George Payton that is going to agree with that approach, because we did see that attempt when Elway was our GM with a former coach that actually, Alex, you're about to go against, that wanted to start building out some of the interior defensive line and interior offensive line players and was overridden by Elway when he was the GM. There's some reports that were out there in the media world. For example, Sebastian Joseph Day was a player that Fangio wanted when he was with the Broncos, and it was rejected by the front office. And I think that, other players such as that were also rejected back in the day as well. And I think Peyton will get his way in terms of building the roster, because I think the front office, or more importantly, not the front office, the ownership is wanting to put their faith in Sean Payton. And I believe that largely it has been warranted, because I believe that Payton has called out things and they've come true. That's my opinion. I have some anecdotal evidence of where I'm seeing some things, but I don't have any concrete evidence to prove that. But I do think that this offseason will be very telling. And Coach, I know on your channel you cover a lot of other NFL teams, and I think it'll be very interesting on your channel as you kind of go forward in looking at NFL news and other teams and stuff, because I think the Broncos will likely make quite a bit of offseason news, and I think it'll be rather interesting.
Oh yeah, I'm sure there'll be plenty of content to cover there.
Oh yeah. We let's just say we won't disappoint. How's that?
That's a fact. I do believe that. I do believe that.
Yeah. So over to you, Coach, and your to wrap up the show, we'll cover the Chargers and news there. Go ahead and take it away in terms of where you're at.
Well, the buck stops for us is coaching search, coaching GM search. I mean, I think everybody in there, and even casual people that kind of haphazardly follow the NFL know that Jim Harbaugh is our number one and only pick at this moment. We're going to make him tell us no about 20 times before we decide to go somewhere else. I think that is where it stops. It starts and stops for us at the moment until he makes up his mind. I take everything that's said in the media with a grain of salt. And to the degree people said that after he won the title the other day that he was looking forward to spring practice. I mean, we've seen plenty of people say things of that nature and they turn right around and sign somewhere else. And the crazy coaching carousel that we've seen in the past week, we've seen Saban retire, we've seen Vrabel get let go. Two things I did not see. Carroll get fired. So it's. I joked with Alex. I said, it'd be funny if they all teamed up with Bill Belichick to create this like Avengers like coaching staff. We coach a different team
in Washington.
Right. That'd be wild, right? That'd be crazy. So, but yeah, that's interesting. They all were either fired or
Vermeil. I'll say Vermeil did that with the Rams, and it worked out real well for them. He had all of these old coaches like Hannafin was one, and a couple other, and I'm sorry I can't remember all of them, but they were all former head coaches that had ties to him, and he took the Rams to the Super Bowl. So it is possible to do that.
Yeah, Ed, I do believe that we do have a good chance of getting him. I think if he ultimately, the things kind of line up in a sense where, he doesn't really want to deal with the college game anymore. And I think that's part of why Nick Saban retired too. That's kind of like a smoke signal that the college game is changing. I think the way the college game is changing, he's fulfilled his destiny as far as winning a title. And the fact that he likely will be sanctioned by the NCAA going forward, he just don't really want to deal with that. And on top of the fact that he has about 40 to 50 seniors that are graduating. So he's going to basically have a whole new young regime coming in from Michigan going forward. So all the signs point to him making a leap to the NFL, in my opinion. But it all just depends on what he wants to do. I even heard the analyst say that, it might be a method of him going to Washington too because of him being close to his brother. He's be big on family like he alluded to and things of that nature. And he can be a ride up 295 to visit his brother in Baltimore. So, that's on the table. They have the number 2 overall pick. He will get his choice of quarterbacks outside of who's the number 1. If the Bears don't ride with Justin Fields, I'm curious about what's going to happen there because Eberflus is still there, which I scratched my head at why. But he fired his whole staff. So I'm like, you got to bring in a whole new staff to complement whatever they're going to do with the number 1 pick. They could trade it and get more capital potentially and having 2 top 10 picks. Who knows? So if they don't pick a quarterback or somebody trades into the number 1 spot to get, Caleb Williams or Drake May, whoever they decide they like better, then they'll have their pick of where they get left. And it's, if you got Drake May or Caleb Williams, I think you're still doing pretty good for yourself. So
yeah.
With that being said, I mean, I'm not going to, put all my eggs in one basket, but I do hope that we do get him. I think that he fits. I think he does relish the idea of coaching Justin Herbert. And I think he has a more ready-made situation to hit the ground running and be successful than rebuilding other franchises. So I think that should weigh into it. Just hopefully that the Spanos family will open the checkbook and give him whatever he wants in regards to decision-making power and the amount of money that he wants to make per year as a coach. And I think we're in good shape. But hopefully until the Eagles draw out the contract, I'm not going to sit here and say that we're the odds-on favorite, but I'm hoping that we do get him. Whether we do or do not, I think that no matter who they select, it needs to be somebody that can establish a culture and establish a standard in LA, because I think that's the biggest thing that's been missing from this franchise, is that somebody outside of Marty Schottenheimer, in my time as a Chargers fan, is the last person I can really say truly to establish a culture and a standard and accountability level for the team that they won't waver on. So I think that's the got to be the it. Looking at Mike Vrabel, because he's available, he's another guy that's a culture setter. So only thing that bothers me about defensive-minded coaches is that who they select is the offensive guys. Because I think S. Eberflus was a problem, and a few others. They just can't seem to get right the idea of hiring a progressive offensive mind when it comes to the other side of the ball. Whether they just have blinders on or they just don't really understand what it takes to hire a guy of that magnitude. I don't know. But regardless, if you can do that part and bring, doesn't stymie our offense while you're getting the defense back together, then I'm okay with something like that too. Like I said, the culture part is the most in glaring and most thing that I want to see change, the culture change in LA. So if that happens, whoever it's Harbaugh, Vrabel, whoever the case is from a coaching perspective, then we can do ourselves a service. But that's where it starts and stops. So, because you have to figure that part out. Then you got to figure out the money part, because we got a lot of money tied up in things of that nature. So we got to figure out who we're going to keep, who we got to let go, we got to trade, because we're up against it. Probably about $30 to $40 million in cap overage at this moment. So we got to figure that part out, who we want to ultimately retain and what we're doing within the draft. So that'll marry itself into the idea that we can, if we want to take a receiver at 5, we can let the receiver go, because again, we're gonna basically replace that person's role and by drafting a guy high. So I'm looking at those things and trying to figure out exactly what they're going to do going forward. I just want to understand that what they want to do at GM and coach first, and that will kind of lead me into the idea of what they're going to do going forward as an organization. I don't know, man. I might be fighting words, man. I'm listening. Let me not let you ever meet my wife, Cap. Because listen, we go. You tell the internet how hot my wife is. We got a problem. We got a problem. I'm just saying.
I look at it as a compliment.
It is a little bit, but that's not your business to tell. Let me talk about my wife.
She is smoking hot.
I mean, yeah. I mean, that's
there we go.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And the best thing about his wife is that she's beautiful more on the inside, Coach. Whereas you're thinking
clean it up. Good job.
There we go.
Good job.
No. You know why, Coach? Because there's only one person on this panel that I haven't friggin' met yet, and I wonder who that is.
Yeah, I know.
So there you go.
I know. But like I said, I don't want you lusting after my wife on the internet, buddy.
I don't lust. I do not lust.
I'm joking. I'm
wife,
joking,
okay?
Cap. I'm joking.
Okay.
I'm joking.
I just.
Ed. I know that, Ed. But thanks.
And the good news is, Alex, is you put that on film on the internet that we can cut up and show back to her that you've said these things live.
Exactly.
And
yes, it's on wax.
Oh,
yes.
I may have just sent her a picture of this chat and said, this took a turn.
Right.
All right.
Indeed.
So
this took a turn.
Right.
Yeah, this took
Ed,
turn to the
in
left.
In the midst of all this, for you to say something like that, Ed, that means a lot.
Right. He likes everything about you except your choice of sports fandom.
Yeah.
I like it.
I'll take that.
I like it.
The same can be said for him.
All right. Well. Wild Wild West. We have an announcement here. Unfortunately, your good old boy coach is leaving the podcast. I've been doing my best. I'm really stretched too thin at this moment. Working a full-time job, 40 plus hours a week in office and traveling and trying to focus on my channel and I've been tasked recently. I got an offer that I really couldn't refuse to start another channel for Star Wars on top of my own channel. So I had to make some tough decisions as to what I need to prioritize. So I will be leaving the Wild West podcast, unfortunately. It was definitely a hard decision. It's been a really good run, almost 2 years for me and Rich. Like I said, it's a bittersweet. I would definitely gain a lot of relationships in this podcast, a lot of followers, a lot of people that have been mainstays on my channel as well as here. And I definitely appreciate everybody that's been shouting us out and been showing us love in this entirety of this podcast. But I'm not gone. I'm just not going to be here on a weekly basis. I did tell Rich and the guys if I can fill in certain points and when my schedule opens up, I'm still looking for a remote job that I can work from home that will allow me to focus more on my channel and my Star Wars gig and as well as other things. So if I do get free time and I can't pop in, I will. But I definitely believe that in my heart of hearts that I got to make this change in 2024. And so far, it has been working out a little bit. I did some different things on my channel, and I'm definitely I've gotten 30 subscribers in 2 days. So, I mean, I definitely need to really dig deep and focus on that. It's been 2.5 years, almost 3 for me. And I want to get this channel off the ground finally and get it to a place where I really wanted to be. So, like I said, that's really where it came down to me making a tough decision to try to leave this podcast. But I definitely will never forget anybody. And I'm a DM or a Instagram chat or whatever away if you guys ever need me for any advice, anything you want to throw my way. So on every platform, TikTok, Twitch, Instagram, I'm Lockdown Defense Sports. I'm a Lockdown Defense on Twitter, as you can see my handle and my name here. So follow me, follow my podcast channel, Lockdown Defense Podcast. I will be around. And like I said, I will be focusing deeply on my content. And if you're a Star Wars fan, follow me at Sith Lord Society. At Sith Lord Society. I'll drop it in the chat. So if you want to follow me there, I will be kicking that off hopefully in the next 30 days.
Well, I mean, I could certainly speak on behalf of myself, and I assume I echo most here that we're gonna miss having you on the show. It was a really great dynamic between the four of us because we had a unique perspective on each of our teams. We had unique football perspectives, but yet we were all respectful of one another at the same time, which is it. I can't stress this enough. I've been doing this for long enough.
Very respectfully.
Yes. Well, no, I actually mean this truthfully without any undertone, to be fair.
I know.
It is very, very rare to have four football intellectuals and whatnot to be able to converse without attacking one another when it comes to their respective teams, especially when there are, decades-long division rivals between each of our teams. And I think that's an important note. It's what makes the show unique in many regards. And so, Coach, just on behalf of myself and everyone else, you will be greatly missed, and I do wish you all the success in your future endeavors. We will be in touch. You will see me, like it or not, unless you ban me. That's your prerogative. But
more than welcome, Richard. You're more than welcome.
But just so that you know, I am the most technically savvy person, not only on this panel, but probably that ever joins the show. One way or another, I will find a way around your bans. So you're not getting rid of me.
Fair enough. Fair enough.
I will track you down.
I can figure that out. That's the easy part. But anyways, Coach, you will be greatly missed on the show. I know that a lot of the fans here have come to adore you. I'll leave it up to the other guys to say their farewells. And with that somber news, after all the other guys speak, Alex, you fire away first. We'll end the show.
Yeah, I mean, certainly, I guess a bittersweet moment, right? Because you're, making a choice is better for your situation, your family, but we don't get to, have the same level of fun as we've been having for 2 years. I've certainly enjoyed, getting to know you and doing this show together and our fantasy podcast. And I just hope that, it's not a total goodbye for this show and talking about the AFC West and, all these great rivalries we have. And it's, we'll see you later.
Appreciate that. And Lord willing, the Fantasy Podcast will be back in August.
Well, Coach, just because you're leaving doesn't mean that you're off the hook. You need to figure out a time when you're in Florida, so I can actually meet you. And I will venture to say that again, we might not like each other's teams, but we did have a great camaraderie and rapport here in the show. And I certainly am going to miss you. I didn't drop any of my normal quirks in respect today. I did out of respect.
You did it through email, so yeah, I got you.
Oh, that's right, I did. Okay, but I had to do it in email.
He said not with my voice, you know.
Right.
Not with. I did it in the email because I didn't know I didn't know if you were coming back for this show for certain. So I did it in the email, but I out of due respect. Again, it was fun, and I certainly enjoyed our tete-a-tetes and back and forth. And again, sorry, who is it? The draft time Broncos. Yeah, you're gonna have to put up with me. So sucks being you.
I thought it was about me. I didn't know.
No, that's
clarify.
That's clarified for me. But I'm definitely going to miss you, and I know that that it will be a different podcast whenever we figure out who that fourth square is going to be, and I just leave that up to Richie.
Okay.
Well,
yeah,
guys,
like I said, it's definitely not a goodbye. It's just a see you later, like as Alex alluded to. You know, like I said, I will do my best to support you guys in your personal endeavors, your channels, and things of that nature. I'm hearing rumors Richie's going to start his own soon. Will we get a Richie's Rants, weekly show? That'll be great. If I can lend my ear to Alex finally getting this channel off the ground, I'll be there as well. I'm always subscribed to the main networks and things of that nature. So again, I'm not gone. I'm just focusing my energies different places. So I appreciate everybody that's been looking out for me up to this point. And it was only up for here. We're going to be doing different things, but we're still going to be around.
And, you can come in anytime. You can come in my show anytime. I remember the one time you came in Vegas. It was wonderful. We actually had a good.
It was a good one. We had a good show there. We did. Yeah, we did.
So obviously, this is it's a see you soon moment rather than farewell, but nonetheless a sad moment for the show. So with that in mind, Coach, I just want to again wish you all the best of luck with all future endeavors. We hope to see you from time to time at the very least. And ladies and gentlemen, until next week, where the West Side is the best side, it'll be a little different though. We'll see you later. Peace.
Fast lane when I pass in the street, bag of money in the passenger seat. Pimples been asking for me on the road from the west to the east. Way up, I might never come down, cause the coast racking up the flight miles. So high, I might never come down, so what, this is my lifestyle. Wait a minute.